Hello, welcome to Africa's Vision Network. Africa's Vision Network features programs on cultural awareness, education, economic empowerment, religion, spirituality, and other issues focusing in on the African and African American world. I am Omar Ashaka, your guest host. We have a fabulous program today. The title of the program is Young Men with a Vision. First, we have our very own Kofi Roberts, a native of Newark, New Jersey. He is a sophomore at Washington Lee High School, and last year he was inducted into the National Honor Society, and he plays the saxophone. I can personally say I pretty much watched Kofi just grow up from a little kid to a tall, handsome young fella. So we're looking forward to interviewing Kofi. He is also the director currently for Africa's Vision Network. Early on, when he was younger, he worked the character generator and he was a camera operator. I do want to add to Kofi's sister, Breon, is currently working on her PhD at the University of Berkeley in California. Welcome, Kofi.
Thank you for having me.
We also are blessed to have a very interesting young man, Tarik Terry. And Tarik is a student at, I believe, Potomac
Falls High.
Potomac Falls High School.
Yes.
Welcome, Tarik. You know, I've just had a chance to meet you, but I'm looking forward to getting a lot of input from you in terms of your vision. But right quick, tell our audience some of the things that you do at your high school.
Well, I'm a member of the Senior Advisory Board. This year I'm a senior, and I've also been in DECA. I've participated in a lot of activities through DECA and Senior Advisory Board. I also did a pageant called Mr. PFHS, where a group of young men competed in like sort of a talent show. Came third place in that. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. I want to go back to Kofi and ask you guys about ask you about the Kappa program, Kappa Mentor Program, Kappa Alpha Psi Mentor Program. Tell us, our audience, a little bit about that and how that has impacted you.
So basically, it's a male youth mentoring group, and we meet once a month, and we talk about things such as your grades. We do recreational activities, and we have mentors delegated to like each of us, and they are in the field that we want to pursue once we get older, and they help guide us along that path.
And both of you guys in that program, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Tarik, tell us a little bit about your experience with the Kappa program.
Well, I've been there for 4 years. It's a great program. I've been the second vice president, and this year I'm the social media chair, and I've learned a lot in that program. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what was involved in being the social media.
Well, I run the Twitter account for our chapter, so I tweet out when meetings are or what we're doing, and a couple other gentlemen are involved with it, and they also tweet out things like with our robotics and those types of things.
Okay. Kofi, how much of a benefit has this Kappa mentoring program been? How much has it changed your life in terms of making you who you are today?
I'd say it's been very beneficial. You know, I was part of the robotics group that Tarik was just talking about. Basically, one of the Kappa men just came up to us and asked if we would like to build a robot, and it was me and 3 other of the Kappa youth mentors or mentees, and we just said, why not? So we had never done this, so we began to build it back in October-ish, and we finished, I think, February, and we went to Anaheim for like the nationals competition, and we just kind of did the competition, and we got the design award, which is basically an award for like the judges come around and ask you what your robot is supposed to do, and I explained to the judge what our robot did, and he was impressed, I suppose. So we won that award.
Yeah, because you won, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, so he was impressed. What's the gentleman's name the Kappa who was in charge of that robotics program?
Mr. Marlon Ridley.
Yeah.
Mr. Marlon.
Yeah, because I think Marion, was it Marion Ridley?
No, Marlon.
Marlon, okay.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, because he was on the program, and it was interesting to see him. So what was it like? It sounded like you guys quickly volunteered to participate in the robotic program.
Yeah.
Was there any intimidation or?
I mean, no, because like there was no consequence of like it was just kind of, would you like to try something new? And it was a cool thing to get initiated into, kind of, and to go down there. There was at the same time as competition, they had this business fair where all these companies came, you know, like Boeing, Ford, Toyota, other companies that make the parts for Ford and Toyota and whatnot. So we got to meet those, and you know, it shows you a side that of like the world that you've never seen, like engineers just like all in one place. Like I never thought of an engineer as like a tangible thing, but then once I went there and I saw them, I was like, well, you know, this is like a fun or like an interesting career, and people are constantly scouting you because they want to build the newest, biggest things. So it's definitely like a stable job and whatnot.
So, Tarik, I think Kofi hit on a very interesting point. Had you guys ever heard of Boeing before and some of these other companies before this experience?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
I have, not too much in depth. I just know, you know, that they make parts and, you know, like a Boeing aircraft and things like that, but I don't know too much about them.
Okay. Do you think that in your future, with your vision, how does robotics play in your vision, Tarik?
Well, I wasn't in the robotics program, but I guess it could, in a metaphorical way, where you're building something up to, you know, impress other people so you can be successful. You know, yeah.
But even though you weren't in the robotic program, you're really into social media.
Right.
And I guess coming from the old school, I don't know that much about the robotics, but it just seemed like it would still have that stimulating mindset, if you will.
Right, right.
So, now, I know both of you guys were in the same program, DECA.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Kofi, let's talk a little bit about DECA.
Yeah, so I decided, actually, when I was a freshman, I had seen DECA, and I was like, I should join it, but I just never got around to it until this year, which is my junior year. And I decided that I would join DECA, and it's basically like this business, hospitality, marketing, and finance club, basically. And you go to the competition and you do a role play based on some event, like you're the, you know, assistant, like they just hired like a new assistant director of something, like they need your help with some kind of problem. And they give you a prompt with certain things that they need to fix in their business. And it was a partner and I, and we had the task of this hotel chain wanted to give members a reason to come back, some kind of reward system, and we had to figure out some kind of thing that would entice customers to come back. And we gave our presentation at Virginia Beach, which was the state's competition. And we got state finalists, but at the DECA competition, like 4 or 5 kids, or like 3 or 4 per group get state finalists. So like they only choose like the top, and if the top drops out, then the other state finalists get to go. But yeah, we got state finalists for that competition.
And so you felt really good about that in terms of what you presented?
Because throughout the year they'd done practices, but for some reason I wasn't on like the listserv, so I didn't go to like most of those. So I just came in like near the end and just kind of went on the trip, and then like not not thinking that I would do like that good because I hadn't been to all these practices, and then it was just kind of something that I guess I was good at, and I did like a couple of practices with like the teacher beforehand. And
well, Kofi, it's interesting. I mean, you mentioned you were good at it, so you sound pretty confident about that. So it sounds like you might be ready for the Donald Trump show. Let me ask you this, Tarik. You said you were in DECA for a couple of years. What was your experience like?
Well, I didn't compete like Kofi did, but it was still a fun program because we did a lot of different things. Like at our school, we support a military, a person died in the military from our school, Douglas Green. And so we have a project there that's been ongoing for the past 4 years where we send boxes off, and we've created a memorial for him at our school. So I participate in some of those, so that's been fun.
Now, were these elective programs, or were you required to take them?
couple you want to talk?
Mine were elected. I chose to go into them.
Yeah, mine was elected. Like mine was after school, so it's not like any kind of scheduling conflict. It's just you just go. It's not like a class.
All right. I was telling you guys off camera. I mean, I was actually part of an organization in high school called DECA, and back then, that was many years ago. But back then, it was called the Distributed Education Clubs of America, and we actually had a program where I participated in a contest, and because I was in that program, I was working as a shoe salesman. That was a part-time job that I had, and actually that was also the demonstration that I did at something very similar that you participated in Virginia Beach. And I'm kind of proud to say that I had this older lady who was very difficult in terms of the shoes she was trying to buy, but I was able to persuade her, and I ended up getting first place. But it's interesting that DECA is still around. I think that's great because it's a
good
growth program. Right.
Yeah.
Well, Kofi, it's been said that you have an interest in becoming a filmmaker.
I would say so.
Tell our audience why that interests you, and why you want to be a filmmaker.
Well, I mean, ever since I was young, I worked on the show that we're on now, called Africa's Vision Network, and I did character generation, and then as I got older, I began to direct the show, and then my freshman year of high school, I got a film internship here at the AIM studio that we're in now, and basically we worked for like most of the summer, and they gave us a check at the end to like show that we'd done it, and like we learned to edit and shoot off-site and whatnot. And then my sophomore year, I got an internship in Brooklyn with RADA Film Group, and they let out the documentary American Promise, which followed these kids from when like they were like in like kindergarten to 18. And I worked with them for the summer doing kind of more of the administrative tasks that companies do. You know, like I had to help them find, like they were going on this tour for their film, and I'd help them find colleges, and I had to put in subtitles for like their movie and whatnot. So that's what I did last summer.
I mean, a lot of exposure there.
Yeah.
Kofi, I'm going to come back to you about your filmmaking aspiration. So, Tarik, I know you said you're going to be attending, you're a senior now, you'll be attending Old Dominion University.
Yes, sir.
Tell our audience why you selected Old Dominion, and what do you plan on majoring in?
Well, I selected Old Dominion because they have a lot of majors that I could possibly major in, because I'm not totally sure what I want to major in yet. So that was really like why I went towards Old Dominion, was because they have like several things that I could do down there that I would love to do.
Okay. And we're going to switch gears just a little bit. You know, we got Mother's Day coming up.
Yeah.
A week from today, matter of fact. Mothers play such a major role in their child's life. I guess let me start with Tarik. What has your family inspiration been like to you in terms of why and who you are today?
Well, my mother, she owns her own business, and she does a lot of things in her community and in our community. She volunteers her time to help people do their taxes because she's a CPA. She has her own business. She is a partner with another business. So that's really inspired me to do, more and have an impact on my community, my future community, my community now, where I can do things to help. Yeah.
Okay. Kofi, of course, I know your lovely mother, Miss Robin. I mean, over these years we've worked together, but tell our audience the impact that your mom has had on your life.
She's definitely pushed to get me into like the highest programs, like ever since elementary school, and she's, supported my efforts to do whatever I want to do, be that music, film, whatever. And she's always been very supportive of my academic career, made sure that I was always signed up for classes that would that college would look at seriously, like IB and AP classes, and signing me up for SAT classes, to make sure that I did my best on those, and she drove, and she always like drives me out to everything, you know, sacrifices her time. Or for the robotics program, you know, she drove out my friends and I like every Saturday to the Kappa facility, and you know, she didn't have to do all that. And you know,
So
I
you
definitely
guys
appreciate
have this
that.
abundance in French, beaucoup amount of love for your moms. And let me ask you this: I'm not sure if you, we were talking off camera. We were talking about the unfortunate situation that occurred in Baltimore. Let me ask you this, both of you: did you see the clip where the mother was kind of smacking her son, trying to get him out of that?
Yes, sir.
I think I heard about it, but
Yeah.
I have not
Okay.
seen that clip.
I saw
Well, let me
it.
start with Tarik. Tarik, what were your thoughts being a young man yourself and seeing this mother trying to keep her son from possibly losing his life?
Well, the idea of her son going out and, you know, having a negative impact on his community and possibly participating in violence and things like that is not good. So she was right in, you know, taking her son out of those activities. But the idea behind the violence and how the people of Baltimore, in that specific part of Baltimore, have been marginalized and by the police and the other white communities. So the idea behind that is, I can see that, but I wouldn't condone the violence. So the mother was right in that situation.
Okay. And Kofi, hearing that, because from one of the things I heard that social services wanted to maybe charge this mother with being abusive. What I've shared with people when I've had this conversation, one thing I admired about that young man is that he did not try to strike his mother back.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't think he would
Yeah.
do that.
Well, sometimes peer pressure. I mean, here he
Yeah.
was out, had all these other young men around him, but that told me that this young man also had love for his mother. Let me ask you this other question, and we also talked about this off camera. I was telling you about a young lady that I know who's a new mother. Her son is only a year old, and unfortunately his father is not there. And he's only a year old, and this mother feels like it is just so tough for her, and her son is only one. Let's talk briefly about the impact of a father. And I'm going to give you guys the choice. Who would like to take this question first?
I'll go first.
Okay, Tarik.
I think the impact of a father is can be really big, especially if it's positive impact or a negative impact, really, because a negative one could send you down, spiraling down a wrong road, whereas a positive one could shoot you up towards the stars. And I think my dad wasn't in my life for a long period, for like the first 10 years of my life, but my mom kind of played the role of mom and dad. So I think sometimes you don't necessarily, not that you don't need a father, but sometimes a mom is strong enough to be the father too. So,
Good
Kofi,
answer.
yeah, that's a great answer. Let me hear your answer, Kofi.
I mean, you know, a lot of what Tarik said, you know, you can never fully be the role of him, but you know, you can do your best to make sure that your son doesn't feel as though he's missing out. Like my mother is a single mother, and you definitely, you know, see the difference between, I guess, your friends who have dads and you who doesn't. But as you get older, you know, you realize that you would have liked to have that, but you can still succeed without him in your life necessarily.
If you were to get a tweet from some young men out in the audience, or the viewing audience, and they ask you for 3 words of encouragement to those young men who may not have their father there, encouragement for them to still find a vision and reach for that vision, because there are some young men who feel, and not all, but there might even be some who feel like, okay, my father's not there, so that's kind of the excuse that they might use. And let me just share this with you too, because we're being transparent here. I think I mentioned it to you. My mother when her and my father divorced. My mother raised me and my three brothers, so I know what it's like when a dad is not there. But if you, what three words?
I mean, more than 3 words, but like not much. Basically, when you have a child, like you can be a great dad. So if like you miss out on the opportunity, doesn't mean that your child does. And if you want to be a good father to your child, then you need to do well when you're younger, so that you can raise him in a household that you'd want him to grow up in.
Well, since Kofi went over 3 words, I'll go under. I'll give you 2. Keep pounding. You know, just because your father wasn't there for you, you know, you can continue and be a better father for your children and continue to push towards the future.
Well, you went under 2, but then you elaborated.
Right.
So that doesn't count.
Well, look, I mean, it's really impressive to hear you guys respond the way you're responding, and I think that's great. What do you think the probability is? What kind of father, and you can make this kind of short, based on this experience, maybe with the father being absent, what kind of father do you think that would make you? I'll start with you, Kofi.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I'd just be there to, I don't know, actually. I don't really know.
Okay.
Like, I don't know.
Well, I mean, I would try to be there, you know, for my kid for, you know, all of the rest of my life, as long as I live for him, and be there for anything that he needs or he or she needs.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, be at any games, be at any kind of event, like whether or not like he wants to do sports, you know, just if he wants to be like a dancer, you know, I'd be there for him for that, you know, just always supportive of what he wants to do.
Okay, and that sounds great. One of the things Kofi and I were talking about off camera, and Kofi gave me this big smile like he was about to get a pizza when I was telling Kofi that his name will become a household name. And I think the same thing with you, Tarik Terry and Kofi Roberts. And Kofi's heard this before, but he's still smiling.
Still funny.
But Tarik, I'm going to come to you, but the reason I was saying that to Kofi, and I really do believe that it would become a household name, is because the foundation that his mom has laid there, his experience with working with the TV program, the Kappa Program. Already you haven't even gotten out of school, but you know you want to become a filmmaker.
Mm-hmm.
And I really do believe that you will be a household name. And Tarik, based on some of the discussions that we've had, I mean, the young wisdom that you're displaying will definitely keep you guys on track. But that leads me into my next question. Can you talk about the role that God has played in your life?
I mean, I'm not a super religious person. However, I do believe in God. I don't know. I just think, I guess he's definitely, I don't know, actually.
Okay, we can come back to you, Kofi.
I gotta think about that.
Tarik?
Well, I'm also not that religious, really, at all, but I do believe in God and prayer. And I think that, like we talked about, how Father may not be there for you, God would always be there for you as long as you believe in him. So
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
I think.
Right. Let me ask you about your schools that you attend. Again, one of the things we try to do on Africa's Vision Network, we try to raise questions that that really get the wheels spinning in terms of something that's thought-provoking. You were in school, you said Potomac Falls and Loudon County.
Yes.
Tell our audience about the student makeup in terms of diversity.
I would say it's definitely predominantly white, and then even now getting more towards Hispanic, being ahead of African Americans in terms of numbers. I see a lot in school. I see a lot more Hispanics than African Americans. Yeah.
How does, and I'm gonna come to you, Kofi. Tarik, how does that cause you to prepare for studying and participating at Potomac Falls as a student?
Well, it's definitely made me want to participate a little bit more, seeing that there's not that many people that look like me to participate. So that's why I do, like Senior Advisory Board or DECA, because there's not a lot of African Americans in there, because there's not a lot in our school in total. So.
What about the faculties, the teachers?
I'm sorry?
What about the teachers?
The
in terms
teachers?
of diversity?
There are not a lot of I think I've only had 3 African American teachers in 12 years of schooling. Yeah.
Kofi, what about the school that you attend now? Talk about your student population. Are you, well, not at Claremont, where are you now?
I'm at Washington Lee High School.
Sorry, Washington Lee. What is the makeup in terms of student population?
I would say predominantly white, and then next would be Hispanic, and then African American, and then probably Asian in there. Yeah.
And what about the teachers in terms of?
The teachers, well, I personally have not had an African American teacher in my 3 years of high school. But I do know, actually no, my band teacher was African American, and there's a African American math teacher that I do not have, but he's at the school.
Okay.
And the DECA, because she's like a teacher who works there, but I'm not in her class, but she's also African American. But that's all I can think of.
Let's say if there was an exit survey, you're about to graduate from Potomac Falls, Tarik. Let's say if there was an exit survey that you had to complete for the school board,
right.
Based on your educational experience, what would be some of the things you would want to share with maybe that principal as well as the school board that might better meet your needs or someone like you?
Well, I don't think that because I didn't have a lot of African American teachers that I didn't learn enough. I would say it would just be more that I didn't maybe have like that connection with most of my teachers because they're not African American. So, but with the teachers that I have had African American, I have had that connection where it's like we both, we look alike, we have the same skin tone, so it's like a connection there. But
and Kofi, I'm coming to you. Was there any stress? And let me share with you guys why I'm asking this too. First of all, for the members in our audience who might be listening. And again, I finished school many, many years ago. And my school was 99% black. So I'm also trying to see what the mindset is like. Was there any stress for you by not having, for example, African American teachers that you could relate to?
No, not really.
Okay.
Not really, no.
Kofi?
Well, I mean, since from elementary to high school, I haven't seen many African American teachers. You definitely see the difference in how you might be treated compared to other students. But since you've grown up like this, you kind of come to expect that. And so you could say that it's stressful, but it's expected stress. So it's not as bad as, I guess, coming from like a mostly black school, then coming to somewhere where you're not as well represented, and then you feel inferior. It's like kind of just what you've grown up with. So I don't know. I guess that kind of makes it less stressful in a way.
Well, Kofi, you made. I just wrote down a couple of words that you mentioned. First of all, I think you said it makes you feel different. Is that what I heard you say?
I think maybe, yes.
Yeah. And then you used the word expected stress.
Yeah.
How does that impact your reaching your maximum potential as a student, if at all?
I mean, I guess it can either can either deter you or motivate you to do better. Like you can be deterred when you don't see as many faces of your skin color in more accelerated classes, just because they aren't there, or they've been tracked to like lower classes. So, or you may be motivated to show that people of your skin color can be advanced classes. So I think it can either have a positive effect or a negative effect, but probably more often a negative effect.
Okay. We also, off camera, we talked about the gentleman who had been shot in the back in South Carolina by the police officer. I've discussed things with the men at my church and other, even my pastor. If there's an event that takes place at your high school, a shooting or something, or a bad accident, a student dies, from what I understand, usually they call in the counselors to talk to the students.
Mm-hmm.
When you have national news where someone is getting shot in the back, and unfortunately it seems like they're flashing those kind of that particular scene at any time, you guys might could see it in even younger individuals. I was just curious, do you feel you need any counseling, whether it's from school or from your parents or from your church, when you see events like the one I'm referencing in South Carolina? We didn't see what happened in Baltimore. I'm not sure if you saw what happened in New York. I'm trying to get feedback from you as young men, because maybe with some of the things you say, I can take it back to my church as we try to develop youth programs and try to get the right information to kind of meet the need. So I'm going to start with Tarik. Do you feel like you need any counseling? Do you need any explanations and discussion about it, or you just go about your daily business?
I wouldn't say I need any counseling. I feel like that has a negative connotation to it, but I would say like it would be good to have like a discussion, an open discussion about it with others, other African Americans or other anybody, where you could just talk freely about what happened and your thoughts on it. Yeah.
Interesting point. Why do you think that would be helpful to Tarik? And anybody else really, but
just because it's good to vent, I guess, and talk about what you're feeling inside, and get other ideas to come into you and receive other ideas and give off yours, and it's good to circulate those ideas.
Well, kind of an interesting point off of that. At my school, I think it was Friday or maybe it was Thursday, we have a club called the Speak Club, started by these two African American females at my school, and we basically talk about things that are in the news. So we talked about the Baltimore riots, and we talked about the Ferguson case when it happened, and we talked about like this law that was passed, where women may not be able to get abortions legally and whatnot. So like we just talk about these things that are happening, and we had that kind of seminar type thing where you just talk about how like you felt, and it's like open to all races. So it's kind of interesting to see perspectives that are like, well, this is why this happened, and you kind of get in like the mindset of the people who might like do these things, and then it's kind of interesting just to see how they think, and trying to change their minds. So it's definitely the talking about it is helpful.
And that sounds like a wonderful program. What is it called again, Kofi?
It's
what do you call it?
It's the Speak Club.
Speak Club
at my school.
Okay. Tarik, I just want to go back to you real quick. You mentioned it's an opportunity to vent. Does that suggest that there are emotions that are kind of pent up when you see these kind of?
Right, yeah. Like with Baltimore, they didn't just go from 0 to 100 with this Freddie Gray incident. This has been happening for years. So the kind of oppressive attitude towards that community has been happening for years. So it just kind of boiled over. Whereas if they would have gotten the chance to talk about it and discuss it, it could have been dissolved quicker.
Okay.
Earlier.
Now, as I said earlier, we had the men from the Kappa organization. We did an interview with them, and Kofi, I think one of them mentioned that, I forgot the position of the Kappa member, but he actually wrote a document, some kind of letter about in regard to the Michael Brown case in Ferguson. So it was on the Kappa's radar in terms of. Matter of fact, I think that was a question that I asked them. Did they discuss it with the young men? And it sounded like they did with some of them. You mentioned this club, Kofi, was started by two
Mm-hmm.
young female students. I'm curious too. I know in certain organizations they say that women are doing things and sometimes the men are not doing things. And um, I was curious, are you seeing in high school where the girls may be more motivated and doing different things and the young fellows are not? And I'll come to you, Tarik.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would have to agree. I would say that um, the women are definitely more motivated to kind of, you know, start these clubs and whatnot. And uh, as men, we kind of just kind of do our schoolwork and then we might do sports or something. But in like terms of starting clubs about important things like the speed club where like we talk about current events, I haven't really seen much of that at my school. I don't know if it's because we don't want to or because we don't feel we can or whatever, but I don't know. It's just I don't see it at my school.
Okay, but you said earlier you kind of agree that.
Yeah.
Okay, what about you, Tarik?
I also agree. I've read an article about how girls and women are expected to get more degrees than men in the near future, and how girls in high school are in AP classes. They're at a higher rate. They're taking AP classes at a higher rate than boys, just because it seems that boys don't want to challenge themselves academically, whereas women and girls they do. So I would agree with that.
Both of you are young boys. I mean, young men. I mean, at this age, I'll call you a young man. Uh, any thoughts as to why that happens in terms of?
I would just say that when when you have a group of guys, you kind of just generally you kind of just want to hang out. You want to go to the mall, you know, and you don't really and you're not so focused maybe on what's happening around you as much as maybe you like should, and you kind of just want to live in high school and you like you know like let's like leave that stuff to uh, adults, I suppose. And whereas, you know, women kind of always see this, let's, because, you know, like they feel this kind of looked down upon by others. So, like, you know, like they're constantly, you know, showing you that we are just as smart as men. So, you know, like they're starting these clubs and they're doing all these things, you know, to show that they are equal, you know, as, you know, like the feminist movement and whatnot.
Okay. Well, look, I got to admit too, you guys are you're like young consultants for me because, like I said, some of this information perhaps I can take it back to our youth ministry, and we can develop some new ideas to again meet a need. Now, here's another question that I want to ask you, and let me just say this: if you're not comfortable with answering it, just let me know. Um, I've always been concerned about homosexuality in the sense that for our young students, I'm not sure, I know they don't teach this in school, but I was curious as to, is there confusion among young students? I mean, I have a young daughter, something flashed on the screen and I think it was two women kissing each other and she just looked at me very puzzled about that. Again, I'll have to buy you a pizza since you've been these great consultants. But what is your thought on that, if you have any at all?
Well, you know, saying as though I live in Arlington, you know, I have multiple gay friends, and you know, it just seems like once you get into high school, it seems that many people they just kind of find themselves. I mean, like not finally, because generally, like I would think like that would happen after college, but I mean, it doesn't seem like a huge issue per se, just because people who are comfortable with their sexuality, you know, like they're gonna know if they're gay or not, and you know, people just find out that they're gay and or you know like they're like bi, and they go on to pursue these lives, and uh, Yeah, and I guess that's all I would say.
Okay. All right. Tarik, would you like to comment?
I would say that our generation is really open to accepting, homosexuality and the LGBT community and all of that stuff. I would say that we're not that other generations aren't, but I see it in my school where we don't really have like this uncomfortableness with homosexuality, and some people might be afraid to talk about it and see it, but it's not
A huge
not the
problem.
whole. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not a huge problem.
Okay. Interesting. Let's talk about travel. Have you guys traveled outside of the country?
Not
No,
not yet.
no, sir.
Okay, is that part of your vision?
Definitely.
Okay.
But I mean, like the furthest I've been as of now is California.
Okay. What about you, Tarik?
I don't know. I don't know. I guess it depends on what I'm doing and where I'm going. Since I don't know that yet, I don't know if I would go out of the country. But it would be nice to go, on vacation to like Paris and speak French.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're learning French, so maybe you might want to go to Paris.
Right. Yeah.
And Kofi, what would be your number one place you'd want to travel if
Well,
somebody gave you an airline ticket to anywhere?
When
in
I
the
was a
world?
child, I would always say Fiji because I saw it in Rush Hour 3. They just said that, and I was like, that seems like a great. And then it's like a cool island. But
Yeah.
now I honestly don't know. Maybe I don't know, just somewhere far. I don't know. I just
Well-
want to travel the world.
Did you say Fiji?
Yeah.
Well, look, if you become successful and rich and you buy a place in Fiji, you make sure you call me because it seems like that's a nice place to go too. So
I will.
What do you guys? How do you feel about this this interview? This time where you're talking and you might have young people looking at you and listening to you and maybe taking notes and like I said, your name will become household names. I mean, how do you feel about that?
Well, that's pretty cool. That's really cool to be just someone I don't even know could be inspired by anything and everything that I've said. So that's something that I don't know if that's happened to me before, where people have been inspired by something I said, but it could happen now.
Yeah.
Okay. And Kofi?
Yeah, kind of, what he said, it's just cool to think that you could say something and people, really take that to heart and they could, live their lives by that. And, cool to think that you can have such an influence on what people do. And it's just important, I guess, to know that once you are of that level, you have to kind of watch what you do because you become people's role models. So it's not just about you and having fun. It's about having fun in a way where other people see that that's a thing that they should and can do in the future.
Kofi, I mean, that was a mouthful of wisdom there. I mean, you're absolutely right because I was going to talk about maybe whoever your favorite athlete is. We know that sometimes these athletes, with the money they make and the fortune and fame and all the other stuff that comes with them, it's so amazing to see how some of them can find themselves broke one day.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether it was poor financial planning. I mean, it could be a combination of things. I'm from Newport News, Virginia, and we have several interesting people from Newport News. Allen Iverson was one, and my brother coached him on the basketball team. Michael Jackson's guitarist, he's passed on now. His name was David Williams. He happened to be my classmate. He played Thriller. I mean, every one of Michael Jackson's hits, David played. And ironically, David died the same year Michael Jackson died. David died in March, and I didn't make his funeral, but my classmates said that Michael Jackson had sent a note of sympathy to David's family. And he said that they were telling me that Michael said, David, and this is almost a quote, "I don't know what I'm going to do without you," because he was his lead guitarist. But I thought it was very ironic, as we all know, shortly thereafter Michael passed away. But what was so unfortunate, David didn't really have enough money to be buried, almost. I mean, at least that's the information that we got. I don't know his money was tied up, but I know that there were some issues. And it could be management, it could be relationships, but you're absolutely right, Kofi. I'm only bringing that out because you do have to be grounded when success comes. And I'm curious, Tarik, and then I come back to you, Kofi. What do you think is, give me at least two things that you believe will keep you grounded when you do achieve your success.
Knowing where you come from. I think if you know where you come from, then the next thing would be you know where you want to go. So those two things would really keep you grounded as long as you have your mindset on where you're going and you remember where you came from. I think that'll keep you grounded.
Okay, Kofi.
I would say knowing where your money is, making sure that you really know the business side of what you do. Like, you're not just someone who is making the money, then giving it to someone else to do your stuff with, but actually knowing, how to, balance your checkbook and, your like taxes and like whatnot, and like make sure that you are on top of that and not just giving it off to someone else because, if something happens, that's on you because it's your money. That's not on them.
Another interesting point, Kofi, when you talked about the business side, and we've had a lot of entertainers on the show and other folks who sometimes they are adults and they have not focused on the business side. I'm curious, at such a young age, where did this mindset come from where you even recognize so early on that the business side is important? You even talk about taxes. Well, I'm assuming you're not paying taxes yet, right?
No,
right.
Not yet. Well, my uncle, he's a very smart man and he's constantly talking about everything. So he often talks to me about investing and why it's important. Like how people buy like a lottery ticket like every day, like once a day or like once every like week, but they won't invest $50, $100. So like that's like a way like your money makes itself and whatnot. And he's like constantly like telling me about books to read, Rich Man, Poor Man, other books, and just why it's so important to make sure that you know where your money is, as well as do your best in school, but also make sure that you know where your money is.
And once again, Kofi, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but another interesting point, which kind of highlights the importance of having a resource like your uncle. And then
you met him.
Yeah, but what's equally important is, are you talking about Ray?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know which uncle you were talking about. Yeah, Ray is a very wise gentleman, and we've had Ray on the show as well. But again, that's the plus of having a resource, but the bigger plus is listening, and it sounds like you have been listening. Tarik, you want to comment on that, about the business side? And
That's definitely important. I think a lot of like the athletes and famous people that we look up to that you talked about, they don't know, they just pay someone to really go with take their money and do, put it here and pay this. They don't really know what's going on. So it's important to know and not be ignorant about your own money.
Okay. I know time is moving on, but let me ask you this other question too. Curious as to what your thoughts are from a health perspective, because again, in the African American community, we have a lot of health challenges. Being in school and as young men, share with our audience your thoughts on health.
Well, my mother has been a very healthy person. We don't really drink soda. We eat minimal sugar. I mean, is like that what you mean by health, or do you mean like mental health? Yeah.
Sometimes we.
So we've always been big on exercise, vitamins, minerals. Eating healthy to avoid health risks like diabetes. Like that kind of thing. Just generally, not a lot of grease, sugar, fat, that kind of thing.
Okay. Tarik?
Same with my mom. She's kind of trained me to eat healthy. A vegetable with every meal and that kind of stuff. And then also to work out and exercise. That's also part of it. That also goes along with not only your physical but your mental health, because you feel good after you exercise. So it's kind of both those things. It's good to keep everything in line because you can get really run down real really quick.
Once again, as you guys are talking, there are buzzwords, certain words that really just kind of just really hit me. You mentioned mental health. Can you talk a little bit more about that, Tarik, from a young man's perspective as to your thought process when it comes to mental health?
Just keeping your, your brain and your mind sharp, and not being, when you have a lack of mental health, you're slow and you kind of feel depressed. Where, if you do things to help and get healthy mentally, you can be sharp and quick on your feet, and witty, and really just all around a better person, because,
Okay. That leads me into another frequent occurrence among high school students and maybe even younger, and that's suicide. By chance, have you guys experienced any of that at the schools that you've attended? I mean, hopefully you haven't, but...
I don't think we have.
I think, yeah.
But I mean, we've definitely had seminars on it, bullying and whatnot. What I think on suicide is that, it's always good to have a person to vent to, as we talked about earlier. That can, make you, rethink your decision. And, just a crackdown on bullying, I guess, in general, because sometimes when, teachers see it, they may think, oh, these kids are just playing around, but, it might be something more serious than that. So maybe just, killing it at its root, whenever you see it, and having more harsh punishments might deter kids from bullying, which would deter kids from committing suicide because they wouldn't be getting bullied. And, yeah.
Okay. Well, you talk about bullying. Let me ask you this. There's a term called nerd. Have anybody ever called you guys nerds by chance?
A couple of times.
Probably,
you know.
Sure.
Okay. So how do you respond to that, Kofi?
I mean, it doesn't hurt me, it just means, I guess, you think I'm going to be successful, so,
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't mind it.
Yeah, I'm not really offended. I'm not offended at all by being called a nerd. I guess that would mainly be because, if you're studying too much or something like that, but that will help you down the road, so.
Okay.
You know.
And follow up to that question, have you had any experience with bullying, people bullying you?
Maybe in middle school a little bit, maybe.
Probably. I think
It wasn't as harsh.
the definition of bullying, I feel like everybody's probably been bullied at some point where they just been made fun of for one thing. So I probably,
And I feel like in some respects, bullying makes you a stronger person, because when I was in elementary school, I have this name Kofi, and people think of coffee. So people used to call me Coffee all the time, which I didn't like. And then, one day I just came in and I was like, I don't care anymore. And then, that makes you, as you get older and you continue to have bullies, you're just kind of like, well, I already, went through this, and you don't really affect my life. So I guess it's the mindset that you come to with bullying. And I mean, but however, I don't know how harsh these other people's bullying was and whatnot, so I don't want to talk on their experience. Right. But just on my personal experience, it happened for a couple years, but I mean, I feel like it only made me stronger in the end. So.
Okay. Let me ask you about President Obama. Share your feelings about President Obama. I'll start with you, Tarik. What you appreciate and maybe what you don't appreciate, and what you might want to follow in his footsteps, so to speak, if there are any things. Or.
Well, I really appreciate President Obama and his service for our country, and him being the first black president of the United States of America. Personally, though, I kind of identify more conservatively, so I don't really agree with a lot of the things that he does. I think he's sometimes can be slow to the jump. It was a while longer than it needed to be after the Baltimore riots started that he made a statement. I think sometimes he's just kind of slower, which I can understand sometimes because it takes a while to make a statement, but it's really, I don't know, I appreciate him, but I don't really agree with him.
Interesting you use the word slower, because I think one of his comments was, I heard him say, Baltimore was a slow-rolling crisis. I thought that was an interesting terminology. Kofi?
Well, I'm not really as involved in politics as I feel like Tarik is, but you know, I definitely think it's cool that we finally had a black president. You know, and I feel like he has been very good in many respects, in terms of, I guess, the things that he's passed. I mean, I really don't know so much of what he's done, and I think he has his faults as any other, you know, human does. But I feel like overall he's been a beneficial president. Like, I don't think he's been a negative president. So I guess I just appreciate that we finally had a black president.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this. Would you want to be president, Tarik, of the United States of America?
It's a pretty stressful job. I think, I mean, that would be amazing. I think that would be an incredible honor. It would be amazing to be president. I would want to do it, but there's a lot leading up to it, and it's very stressful once you get in there. So I don't know. Not
Okay.
sure.
Kofi?
I'd rather be the CEO of a company and then donate to something that he's doing, so then I have some kind of say and maybe some kind of bill he's going to pass. You know, I don't really want to be in front of the cameras like that, because you can't really say what you think, because you have to think about your second term, and you have to think about conservatives as well as liberals. So I feel like it's easier just to be behind the scenes than right in front of the camera.
Okay. Time is we're just about out of time, but I do want to ask you one quick question, both of you, so if you can give me a quick answer. Again, we're thinking about if there are some young folks, young television viewers, what has kept you from drugs? I'll start with you, Tarik.
Really just the future and the consequences
When you
from
say future?
drugs. Yeah. Like, well,
Your future or?
my future,
okay.
right? Yeah, I want to be successful, and drugs will really keep you from that, especially if you get like too far into it and you become addicted, or you start selling and you get arrested, and it just, that goes down a bad road. Whereas I want to be successful, so stay away from that.
Kofi?
Yeah, same. Just thinking of your, just thinking of your future success in whatever, you know, road you want to go down. You can't really find that with drugs. You know, you are gonna, you know, fall into a hole. You know, everyone who thinks that they won't, you know, like they always say, you know, I'm fine, I'm in control of myself, and then they find themselves, you know, 20 years later, doing drugs like more heavily than they ever thought that they would, and they aren't where they thought they would be in their careers or lives or whatever. So, you know, I just think the thought of that keeps you away from drugs.
Okay. Again, we're about to wrap it up. Tarik, I want you to say whatever you feel like you want to say within your heart. Imagine you're speaking to students at your high school.
Okay.
Words of wisdom, if you will.
I would just say, I don't know. I would go down the, you know, make something happen. You know, don't just be another guy or another girl. You know, make an impact on wherever you are, whatever you're doing. You know, if you're going to be at McDonald's flipping burgers, be the best burger flipper ever or something, but make something happen.
Okay. Kofi?
You know, as Tarik said, you know, be like a change, or I mean, be like a big voice wherever you go, or whatever you decide that you want to do. Make sure that people know you, and make sure that you take advantage of any kind of opportunity you have to meet people in any kind of career field, whether or not you want to do that, just because, you know, you never know what kind of doors they may open for you in the future.
Okay. Well, Kofi and Tarik, I want to thank you very much on behalf of Africa's Vision Network. I mean, this has been very enlightening to me. It's been just great to have you here. And I want to personally extend a wonderful thank you to your moms, because obviously they've done a wonderful job. And we want to thank our viewers for watching Africa's Vision Network, and we look forward to you joining us for our next program. So thank you very much. And again, God bless you guys, and
Thank you.
may you be successful, and I know that your names will become a household name. God bless you. Kofi?
Mm.